I've read it. It's just there's nothing to even sink your teeth into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
Want to sink your teeth into this episode?
Are you waiting for an answer? Let's just do it.
This is Byron and Nicole White, and you are tuned into episode 69 of The Real Word.
Oh, word.
Word's up,
is
Nicole. Word is up. We're
Word's
starting
up. We're
the
here.
show. The podcast is on. We're doing it. And he recaps anything you want to talk about before we get into the Rackets? Anything from last week that's interesting to you, Nicole?
Wow, this is like a new spin.
Yeah,
Are we
this
doing
is a
like a
new
new angle?
This is a new segment here on The Real Word
New
where we
angle?
just ask Nicole what is running through your head at this moment. And then we get into the Rackets.
This like actual moment.
Like what's in your brain right now?
I could really use some hand lotion because my hands are dry.
I was thinking the same thing last night, but then they magically went undry today.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Did
It's my
you
body recovering
you
overnight.
showered and
Yeah.
anyway.
Feeling good.
Good.
All right.
Good day.
A couple of rackets. First racket being a recap on a topic we touched on probably 4 episodes ago, maybe somewhere in there.
Probably.
So you can go back into the archives and look that up. But Brad Inman wrote the article. I like it when Brad writes his own content on Inman.
This one's just sort of like a
Nicole didn't love it. I like it.
It's an opinion piece.
It
It's just
is
like
an opinion
it's a filler
piece.
piece. Clearly, the real estate news was a little slow.
So we'll link this up like we always do. If you're new to the show, we pick 3 topics that are trending in real estate. We put our 2 cents on top of them and tell you if they're a racket or not. And so the first racket is RE/MAX should buy Redfin. And so if you read the article, Brad goes through his case for RE/MAX buying Redfin. I actually, and I think a number of people alluded to this when they partnered on that lead deal, right, where Redfin was going to start sending some leads to RE/MAX at a referral fee. You know, I thought it made a lot of sense. If you go back 2 episodes ago to the Tom Ferry episode, Tom talks about Redfin being like, I don't want to misquote him because it's literally in our video.
Yeah.
But he basically said Redfin's going to die, right? Like in maybe not in the near future, but their model's not sustainable.
It's a hard one because he also wouldn't talk about anything beyond 18 months.
Right.
So,
but he's not bullish on Redfin, and their current model, I'm not bullish on it either. They're a discount broker.
right.
People are seeking the best service and experience possible. If you look at the reviews, if you go to Yelp, for example, you're going to see less than stellar reviews for Redfin. So the experience isn't there. Despite the fact that they might save a little bit of money for people on the fee, they're not getting the service and the experience end of it. So should they look at a deal like this? I think Redfin would jump at the opportunity to be swallowed up by a RE/MAX if, to Brad's point, if RE/MAX, the founder of RE/MAX, was willing to maybe give up a significant share of his equity in RE/MAX.
Well, and it sounds like the owner of RE/MAX has been running it pretty well. I mean, they have 0 debt. I mean,
yeah, they're at a 1.2 billion cap.
yeah,
I think
which is great. I mean, they're right up there with Realogy. I mean, Realogy's dropped significantly over the last few years.
1.24 billion is their
and there's no debt. I mean, really, the main purpose I feel like for acquiring Redfin would just be because of the tech end. Like you're paying for a lead generator.
You know what I think? I think this is absolutely going to happen.
You do?
I think this is a
So
slam
you
dunk
think it's
going
just
to
like
happen.
it's
I
that
think
they're courting each other right now.
Yeah, I
they're
think the
trying to figure
referral-
out how it's all going to work.
Exactly.
And then
I
they're
think
gonna
that
merge.
referral deal.
They'll start kissing or something in a couple weeks.
They're kissing right now.
They are.
You know, they did the
I don't know.
referral
I feel
deal.
like you hold hands first.
They were holding hands when they were talking about the deal.
You
Now they
think?
made the
I don't
deal.
know, I feel like they're holding
Absolutely.
hands.
They've got the referral deal in place. I think this is a no-brainer going to happen. I don't believe Redfin is going to be able to compete with EXP, who's gaining agents every single month, or Compass, who's certainly gaining and buying everybody out, right? Like, and Realgy, and companies like ours.
Well,
William
and
Ravis,
Remax just has such a large brand too. I mean, you see a hot air balloon and you know exactly what it is. I mean, they've got good agents too, though. They're not just holding on to agents just to sit in an office or to sit at home or, to make sure.
Redfin immediately gets the agent count. They get the experienced professional agent that knows what they're doing, some great teams in the country.
Yeah.
And then they can just focus on that tech. And it takes Remax's tech from like here to like here, right? Because we know that the Redfin site is very powerful. It can generate a ton of leads. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to get in a prediction mode and say that this 100% happens in the next 5 years. Redfin will sell out to Remax, and Remax will actually want to do it so that they can compete with these new emerging disruptors like a Compass.
Right. Well, and I think historically, though, too, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Remax has always been more of like a units brand than like a number. I mean, obviously everybody wants to make money, but I feel like a lot of Remax agents do a lot more units than they do like numbers. So obviously if you have like the leads coming in too, it's just going to help them funnel it into their agents even more so that the agents' numbers continue to grow in units.
So no racket for me. It's going to happen.
I'm
just putting it out there.
Wow.
Remax will someday buy.
It's happening in
Redfin.
exit.
Somebody will buy.
69.
Somebody will buy Redfin, and I'm just going to say it's going to be Remax. I think it's a perfect fit, and it'll work quite nicely. All right, racket number 2. Does the car that you pull up into
as a real estate
for
agent
a listing appointment matter? As a real estate agent, of course.
As a real estate agent.
Does the car matter? Here's one thing I'll say. Every agent, every single agent out there drives a BMW. All of them, most of them are white, but they're all driving a BMW.
The white people definitely drive the white.
The Nicole white people drive the white BMWs.
And if you guys haven't caught Byron's Instagram story, he, I think, ridicules me about my BMW at least once a month.
Yeah.
I make a cameo in my car on his Instagram story once a month
because it is the typical
fancy. He calls me fancy.
It's the typical realtor ride. Get the BMW. So I think that's not a racket, but the real question is, does it matter which car that you pull up in? What's your 2 cents on that?
So it's a hard one to really answer, to be honest. I think that there's a lot of preconceived notions, like you're saying, that of realtors must have a BMW.
Well, it's almost like that thing where it's like there is a lot of agents that drive BMWs and then there's not a lot that don't. It's like if you get a car, you start seeing all those cars everywhere.
Absolutely. Agree. I think, though, I think that there is a lot of chatter around the car, whether it makes the difference or not. I don't know the answer to that. I used to drive. So I've got 3 children. I still do. I refuse to do the minivan thing. So I had a Buick. I did an Enclave. Probably one of my most favorite cars. But I can't tell you how many times people would come up to me and say, like, Nicole, like, you're driving like an old person's car, like you don't fit it, like what are you doing? So again, there is a lot of chatter around the cars that we drive. Again, there's a client of mine actually brought it up to me, like I don't think she's getting listings pulling up in that brand of a car. I mean, so whether it's happening or not, people are certainly talking about it. I don't know if it makes a difference, but it's certainly the first impression.
There is a couple things. I think it makes a huge difference.
Huge.
I absolutely do. I think they're not huge. I guess
what are we
huge
talking about, though? We're talking about like you don't have hubcaps on your car?
Well, here's the thing, right? Like I think there's a significant difference. Not a huge. Let me retract that. Significant difference because well, you just said it. It is your first impression. They are waiting for you. They're looking out the window, and the first impression, the first visual thing that they see, unless you sent them something in an email, which you should be doing. Okay. But the first visual thing in person they see is your car.
Right. So what you think? But I could go the other way though. If someone's pulling up in a Tesla and then the person is pulling up in,
now it comes down.
Let's just do like a Jeep. Like
well, now it comes down to knowing your market. If you're pulling up in a Tesla in Beverly Hills, where the average price point is $4.9 million. Yeah. I think that's going to be expected, right?
Okay.
If you pull up in a Jeep Compass in Beverly Hills, it's like did they just rent that car? What
Right.
Is their car in the shop?
Right, because I guess my
and it could be a brand new Jeep
was
Jeep
not in
Compass.
California, and maybe that seller would think like, oh, they don't need my business.
Yeah, if you do the Tesla here and you're like, one of 3 people to have a Tesla in your town, that could definitely be the
right.
perception.
They could be like, ooh, like,
right. But if everybody's
me.
driving,
and then maybe they're intimidated by the agent because like they're maybe feeling like they're like a lower class than.
If you're in a luxury,
if you're
in a luxury market and your price point's
that's why you
luxury,
just have to stick with the BMW because it's not a Tesla. You're not missing your hubcaps.
I think there's a really valid point there, like the BMW. Or the BMW wagon or something like. What do you have? The little wagon thing?
I do. I have an X1. Again, it was super.
So
it was what I could afford. It was what I could afford.
So it's BMW with the little hatchback thing.
Yeah.
You got like the family thing going, but you got the like the BMW tag. You got kind of got it all mixed in there. So I think that's.
But
a
it's
safe
white.
play.
It's white. So it was like.
And it's white.
So I don't have to worry about washing it all the time because you don't see the dirt. It's great.
You can see the dirt.
No. White, no. Dark, the black you can see the dirt.
Got it.
But I also I do white. I make my husband drive a white car. I drive a white car. My last name's White. I just like white. I like white.
She's got the white stuff going on. Anyways, here's the thing, right? Like it will depend on your market. Right, so you've got to take that in consideration. If you're trying to list just 2 million and up homes in whatever market you're in, you better roll up in something nice. Here's the other thing: even if you don't have something nice, right, or something brand new, here's one thing you better not, be in this situation: having your car like leak oil. You're definitely not getting a listing appointment if you pull out.
Has yours leaked oil?
No, mine doesn't leak oil. But if
you're
leaking oil in the driveway,
that
infuriates some people. That. For me,
I feel like that's happened to you before. It's like you're giving a very specific example.
I had a nice like driveway and like I was one of those like out there like cutting the grass with scissors and making sure everything's right, and you're really getting ready to sell your house, and then this agent pulls up in their car that's leaking oil.
Yeah.
That would just go.
So how do you feel pulling up in your Jeep? Do you feel comfortable?
I have a Ford Explorer.
Oh, I thought you had a.
I used to have a Jeep.
Oh,
I have a Ford Explorer.
We have a Explorer.
I love it. It looks like the cop car.
Well,
in
you have it all blacked
out.
out. That was the right way to do. You had to do it. I'm glad that we did the black.
No, I think it's like okay, it's a new SUV. I think it's kind of
practical.
I think it's like the BMW wagon thing that you have going on.
I just don't know if you had like a personal.
In the middle.
Like you think about it are you thinking about it when you're pulling in?
Yeah, I thought, when I used to drive a Toyota Prius when I first started
were you self-conscious pulling in?
No, I actually got a lot of comments, and the Prius was another good car because you had people. I would pull into people's homes that were listed, that were valued at $1.5–2 million, and they would have their nice car, but they'd also have the Prius in the garage. So it was like something that even those guys could relate with.
Yeah.
But somebody that maybe doesn't have a home that's in that price range could also relate with it because it's like, oh man, I'm saving so much on gas.
Right.
Like, I'm saving the environment one way and I'm saving all this money on gas the other way. So it was a relatable car. It was a conversation starter. The article here, I
guess my biggest thing was, have you ever been in a car that you felt uncomfortable in? My husband had a Maxima, like he bought it right out of college. And when we started having kids, like we would always get like a new car for me, and he would just keep that car because it was paid off. Until I finally got to the point where like over the summers, because he's a teacher, so he would get like the family car over the summer, and like
you couldn't drive it anymore.
I couldn't. We had to upgrade it. I feel like there's.
Courtney Clark in the article showed up to meet a potential client last month. The first thing she ended up talking about was her 2018 M5 BMW. And the buyer or client or whoever was a mechanic, loved it. And they were talking about cars for 20 minutes. I have a very basic Ford Explorer. It's a new, it's black.
But you're
SUV.
Also not a car guy.
I'm not a car guy, so I'm not trying to have a conversation.
You wouldn't even have that you wouldn't even, you'd be like, I don't even know what kind of car I drive.
Right. I'd rather have mine be so generic where it's like, it's not a conversation, but it's not an alarming thing to them. It's not like that car's falling apart. It's none of those things, right?
It's not leaking oil in the driveway.
Yeah, at the very least, safe, clean, presentable, because you want to be able to present yourself as a professional that's doing deals day in and day out. And if your car is literally falling apart, then they're not going to believe that you're doing all these deals and ripping it up.
Or that you are on top of making, like if you're not maintaining maintenance on your car, are you going to be maintaining their listing?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't think it's a racket to think about what
No.
car you are
I
pulling
think it's fun,
up
and
in.
if anything, it allows for great content for Byron's Instagram story.
Yeah. All right, racket number 3. Do you have time for real estate conferences, or should you make the time?
Who has time?
All right, let's go through this. This is another Inman article. Number 1, they're saying you've got the time, you should have the time, and the reasons are: 1, jumpstart your business; 2, understand trends; 3, one takeaway could cover your whole cost for the event; number 3, referrals. You get referrals; and number 5, be inspired. So we're extremely busy. This is like conference season, event season. It seems like there's so many of them.
Which is so interesting to me, because I feel like in real estate, like, you shouldn't probably do it in the spring, because that's just like
it's now and it's the fall. Those are like the two seasons.
It's so bonkers to me.
Well, here's the thing. People, you're going to compete with vacations in the summer.
Right.
And then you're going to compete with holidays in the winter when you should be doing them all because you're the slowest. But those two things get in the way.
I get it. It's always so interesting to me when our company just had ours last week, and it's like there's 3 days right in the middle of like closings and listings. And
so, okay, we're super busy right now. Do you think it's important to just stay in your market, keep doing the deals you're supposed to be doing? Or do you think it's important to carve out time and go to these conferences?
So I can only speak for myself, because I get bored super easy. So even when I am really busy, I like to sort of mix it up a little bit, because I do think that of all those things, I do like number 5. I think you get sort of re-inspired, because I think when you get sort of bogged down in like the day-to-day, or, you just, because it's so super easy to get burnt out in this business. I mean, you could hate sellers, or you could hate like it's such a mess. You could hate the people you're working with, because like you're stuck with them in the office. Or I think it's really important to just, if anything, just to break up like the day-to-day of it. Like, I know that our jobs are like super spontaneous, and we're not really ever doing the same thing, but we're always having sort of the same conversations. We're always having the same hiccups. So to sort of have that breakup in it, I think is great. And to be around people that are in different markets, like that part is like the most mind-blowing for me, because like you sort of get wrapped up in what your market is doing and what's going on there, and you become so sort of like tunnel vision that it's
you become tunnel vision in your own business.
For sure.
If you don't get around people, whether it's a mastermind or a conference. So I'm less hung up on the word conference, and I'm more hung up on what actions are you taking to get around people doing more than you. That's the game for growth if you really want it in real estate or any business. It's getting around the people that are doing much more than you are. And if you're not going into conferences, if you're not getting out of your market, if you're not involved in a mastermind, that means you are insular to your own business and to your own market. And we have people in our market that have stayed in their little towns for their entire careers, and they've never left. And there's plenty of people in your market that you know who I'm talking about, right? And I'm hoping it's not you watching this video.
Yeah.
But you know of people, you've seen
they're
people
watching us, they're not.
that are building their business, that are not getting out there and networking. And what happens to them? They're doing things that worked 15, 20 years ago. They're the people that are still putting their ad in the newspaper because and honestly, some of the reason is because they like the salesperson at the newspaper, because they've been communicating, having coffee, having lunch with that person for the last 20 years.
Right.
And they're afraid that other people in that town, just that one little town, and these are people, by the way, that are reading these newspapers for the last 25 years that haven't sold in the last 25 years. They haven't transacted. They are not going to do business. And you're afraid of losing like them potentially. They're going to see you at the coffee. This is actually going to be a good test. If you take your ads out of the newspaper, they're actually going to talk to you now. They're going to say, oh my gosh, so-and-so, like, did you stop doing real estate? I don't see your ad in the newspaper anymore. It's actually going to create more activity for you.
I feel like a lot of people also
newspaper.
Put some things in the newspaper, though, because they also don't want to lose their spot to like another agent too.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, like I get those people all the time. Like, hey, Nicole, like if you firm up, like this for the year, like no one else can take that
competitor
front page
X
corner.
Is taking it.
Go ahead if they want to spend $325 on a weekly front page ad. Like,
is there any other dumb ways I can get them to spend their money?
Bless them.
Like, line me up with some more good ways to get them to spend their money. So this is not a racket. This is to think that growth, to think that learning from others is a racket, and that you're too busy, unless you're number one in the entire country.
I don't
if
know.
you're number one in this
but
country,
the number one in the entire
don't go to
country is still
conferences.
going to the conferences. Like, you should just still want to learn. Like, you should just want to keep learning. I mean, and regardless of, because sometimes at the conferences, like they're like again, like Tom sort of talks about like health and wellness. Like, I just feel like there's just so much that you can still learn.
Yeah.
If
and,
anything.
And
So
to the point here in this article, you pick up one referral. You pick up one, like, oh, you're doing it that way on Zillow. You pick up one tweak that gets you 10% more on your margin. You're making, right? So there's so many reasons this is not a racket. And there's a ton of great conferences. Obviously, you know, we talk about a lot of the ones that we go to or have gone to. All the Tom Ferry events are great. Even Inman, they've got a great event twice a year. Inman Connect.
I feel like we should.
That's a good event.
Participate in that event.
I have.
Yeah, I know you have. I'm saying with me.
With Nicole. That would be a much better time with Nicole.
I'm certain of it.
Lots of good events. And if you're going to any this year, hit me up. Put them in the comments, actually. If you're going to an event this year, I'd love to know which event you're going to. Just put it into the comment box. And hopefully we're going to the same one.
How many are you going to?
I'm going to a few.
Yeah?
I'll put them in the comments.
Okay.
All right. All right, guys. Keep it real. We'll see you guys next week for episode 70 coming up.
We're on it. We're doing it.
We're doing it.
Well, maybe we'll hit 100 this year.
We will.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.